Live streaming is on.
Hi everyone again. So we are now starting the first session of SIGEF special G20 edition. That session is dedicated to positive partnership for the advancement of the SDGs. And I'm very pleased to welcome someone that is a great innovator, a great visionary, Masayasu Ishida, who is a co-founder, chairman, and CEO of Space Seed Foundation, which is a Tokyo-based nonprofit, and which focus on the development and expansion of the space industry. Masayasu is also a principal of Eitekine and is actively involved in matters of government committees in the government of Japan when it matters to innovation and space. Masayasu, it's a great pleasure to welcome you from Japan, from Tokyo. We're gonna give you all the floors today so you can bring us from Earth to the space and the sky. Masayasu, please.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you for the kind introduction. So good morning, everyone. So my name is Masa Ishida, co-founder and CEO of Space Seed Foundation. So first, I'd like to express my gratitude to the organizer for providing me with the opportunity to be part of this excellent event today. So I'm so excited because this is my first time to join the SIGEF, right? So although the title of this session is a positive partnership for SDGs, however, so I will talk about space, right? So most of the people are not familiar with space, and some of you may wonder what's the connection between the SDGs and the space is, right? But I suggest the space industry can be an alternative solution to solving socio-economic issues facing humanity. That's my title of my presentation. So let's start my presentation. So I'd like to share my slide. Can you see this?
Perfect. So we see the presentation, Masayasu.
Thank you so much. So first, let me briefly introduce our activity. So Space Tide is a non-profit organization focusing on the development of the space industry. So taking a neutral position, we cooperate with a wide range of organizations and individuals and performs cross-industry activities. So one of our main activities is organizing the biggest space business conference in Asia Pacific. So last year's conference, we had 60 speakers from 10 countries and also 700 participants from diverse sectors. So in addition, I work for Kearney, global management consulting firms. On top of that, as my individual activities, I have contributed to the policy making in the Japanese government, so as a member of various governmental committees. So most people are not familiar with the space industry and see space as an iconic display of frontier spirits. However, so space systems already serve as a critical infrastructure in our daily life. So observation satellite brings weather forecasting. So communication satellites are utilized as a backhaul for mobile network and in-flight connectivity. So if the satellite system were to fail, socio-economic loss could amount to several trillion US dollars globally. So considering this fact, we can say the space system is a critical infrastructure for modern life. So most people also may think of space as an area of governmental activities. That's true. So historically, it's driven by the government. However, the global space sector is undergoing a major transformation. So in addition to government-led space development, new efforts are pumping up from the private sectors. So magnificent visions are turning into reality. So SpaceX, one of the most famous space company in global, was the first private company to successfully transport the astronaut to the International Space Station. And also, SpaceX has already deployed hundreds of satellites to provide a high-speed internet connectivity from space. With these various growth drivers, so the size of the space market is expected to reach $1.1 trillion by 2040. So this industry is full of many possibilities and is expected to grow at a higher rate. However, so is the space industry showing its full potential? I don't think so. I think the space industry can and should contribute to solving socio-economic issues on Earth. So in the year of 2020, we are facing the COVID-19 pandemic. It changed the way the world works and still limiting our daily life, even in Japan too. So, but not only COVID-19, there are many other challenges facing humanity, such as climate change and poverty, right? So there are also various economic issues faced by various industries. For example, so I'm familiar with the automotive industry. So automotive industry aims to be carbon neutral with clean energy and zero fatal traffic accidents. So in Japan, where I live, the need for automation is increasing in various industries due to a declining birth rate and aging population. So does the space industry face these socio-economic issues? I think so we can contribute more. So I'd like to introduce a Japan case. So Japan has a basic plan on space policy, which defines its national space development strategy. So this plan has been revised every 4 to 5 years. So this year, we have fourth revision. So throughout the discussion, goal-oriented approach was emphasized as a basic principle of space policy. So we define the goal as solving global issues and driving innovation and economic growth. So which means space industry is expected to contribute to a national agenda and global issues. So how we can do that? I would say the key is entrepreneurship and partnership. So now we can see signs of a new ecosystem development with the number of stakeholders increasing rapidly. So in Japan, there are more than 50 startups and 100 large corporations are involved in the space community, and they are expanding the horizon of the space industry. So 50 startups are engaged in a wide range of space business and are tackling solutions to socio-economic challenges. So let me provide some example. So a company called Synspective utilizes satellite imagery to monitor land displacement and provides a fluid damage analysis. So Umitron also utilizes satellite imagery to improve the productivity of aquaculture industry and to preserve marine resources. So a company called Avatar Inc. developed a remote-controlled avatar robot is addressing the increasing demand for telemedicine and teleeducation under the COVID-19 pandemic. The other company called Air is developing a small satellite with aiming to unravel the mystery of middle atmosphere, so that can help us better understand the mechanism of global warming. And the collaboration with the non-space industry will also be important. So in Japan, so various large corporations, including a telecommunication industry, automobile industry, airline industry, the agricultural industry has shown great interest in space. They see space technology as an enabler to create many kinds of values, so such as mobility automation, machine smartification, ubiquitous connectivity, and the circular ecosystem. So I would say there's a limit what the space technology can do on its own. However, by collaborating with the other industry, space technology can make a larger impact on society. So let me show you some example. So please look at this chart. So Subaru, I think you know, it's a very famous Japanese automobile OEM. So they utilize the positioning satellite to develop the advanced driver assistance system to achieve a goal of zero fatal traffic accident in the future. As a Kubota, a very famous agricultural machinery provider, developed a robotic tractor. So as a solution to increasing demand for agricultural automation due to declining working age population in Japan. So ANA, a major airline company, they are facing a difficult time under the COVID-19 pandemic. However, together with the National Space Agency, they are trying to collect atmospheric data from aircraft and combine it with the data from satellite to provide a comprehensive analysis of greenhouse gas. And also, dealing with the SDGs is a major topic in Japan. So throughout the discussion at the governmental committee, so I came up with an idea of launching a public-private initiative to solve socio-economic issues on Earth by space business, right? So this initiative called Space Biz for the SDGs was launched. 15 private companies from the both space and non-space industry are involved in this initiative. And also our Cabinet of Japan also support these activities. So now we are discussing how the space business can contribute to solving the social economic issues faced by local communities. So discussion on leveraging the various space technology ongoing. So through the partnership with the local government, we are planning to demonstrate ideas of business case so next years. So this is the final page of my presentation. So as I have been saying, so space industry has many possibilities to be an alternative solution for the socio-economic issues facing humanity. However, there's a limit to what the space industry can do on its own. So to address the numerous issues, so collaboration across players or industries and countries and regions will be extremely important. I think that this wide variety of our stakeholders have to act harmoniously to achieve the progress for the humanity. Yeah, that concludes my presentation. Thank you for paying attention.
Thank you, Masayasu, for a very, forward-looking sharing and the presentation. First of all, Masayasu, what you say and what you articulate, shows us that space can indeed, be related to sustainability in many ways, and I think this is really the dimension of the partnership. It's how we're gonna, work all together. And I think the slide that you show, which involve the government, the private sectors, your entities with the foundation, and as well the different stakeholders, really is expressing, that dimension. And I think that is a great, stone to explore in all the fields and all the sector of activity. But if you enable me, a first question, it's really about, how did you come to such a passion for space? Is there, what's the story behind that? Because there is a story for sure, and I think our audience, which is coming from more than 30 to 50 countries, we were just checking, later, really are interested to know about that. So what is the secret behind, Masaya's passion for the space?
Yeah, thank you for the great question about my personal story. So it's no secret. So so I have dedicated my life to expanding and developing the space industry with the goal of creating the future of Japan and the world. But it's a long history. So when I was in elementary school, so I read about Greek mythology. Do you know that? Greek mythology.
Absolutely.
So yeah, became interested in stars, right? So after that, I read many books about space. And I remember my outlook on life fundamentally changed due to a big scale of space, right? So that's right at the age of 29. So I had a panic attack, right? So it takes 4 years for me to rehabilitate. So at around the same time, so Great East Japan earthquake occurred. So do you remember? So almost 10 years ago. So killing many people. So that experience became me very aware of death, right? So as I faced myself, so I remember I love space when I was in elementary school, right? So I both, so I would start doing something related to space. So I started to volunteer. Yep. So this was a starting point to lead to the present. So long history. So but I think that it brings me joy. So I can work on my dream, right? So through my professional life, that's my personal passion.
It's what I understood from your role in principle in consulting and advising many like strategic companies and when we saw the leap like towards this initiative with space when I explore all what you are doing, I say yes, this is his passion.
This is passion. So yeah, as you said, I wear similar hats, consulting firms, my foundation, and my personal activities. But yeah, I'm willing to do everything to develop the space industry. Yeah, because this is my passion.
I think that a follow-up remarks on that is the space, which is as you have described, it's unknown, it's gigantic, it's untapped, and maybe fortunately in that. But that as well something where we see people, humanity, have to maybe come together, to work together, to build, our relationship with the space. In that aspect, what do you feel about, like the ability and the willingness you have to go for partnership with abroad and other, entities that can support the same ideals and the same passion?
That's true. That's true. So yeah, working together is very important because, as I mentioned, the global space sector is undergoing a major transformation. So various factors such as increasing the number of space nations and the expansion of private space business, and also the diversification of applications using outer space have come into play at the same time. So it's very important to make an effort to build a common understanding on current state of affairs and develop a larger ecosystem, so involving not only the governmental sector but also the private sectors. So and collaborate to address collaborate to achieve the progress for humanity. That's very important.
I think that's very inspiring comment in that regards. And Masayasu, so as you know, this event is happening just as a special G20 edition prior to the G20 happening in the Saudi Arabia, which is doing absolutely, like a very strong innovation at the moment. They want with their Vision 2030 to do a lot. So maybe, that's potential synergies as well. But so from your aspect of visionary and innovator, what might be the recommendation, the sharing of experience you would like maybe to share to governments and to the G20 in particular? What might be, based on your experience, something valuable for us to know and to convey to them?
Yeah. Thank you for the great question. So, yeah, over the last decade, more than 30 countries have step into space sectors. So now, more than 60 countries has its own national space agency at the moment. So different countries have different views and different motivation to step into this market. However, the collaboration across the countries and regions will be extremely important because the space is a common asset for humanity, right? Yeah. So there's no boundary. So I anticipate the G20 can play an international role by being a venue for our partnership, cooperation, and also our harmonization, right? To moving forward.
Yes, absolutely. So I stress, the sentence you just say, which I think is amazing, which is space is the common asset for humanity. I think this is really, like really a keystone, of what is at stake, and I think it's indeed paramount that the nations at all levels really understand that we have to work together, and looking at the skies as well, like a way to look in our own dreams. I think that maybe, like Masayasu, if you could share, like for our audience, for the citizens of the world, because the intervention is recorded, live streamed, what will be your message for the citizens of the world that is, like capturing the passion and the vision that you have?
Okay. Yeah, thank you for the great question. So, as I mentioned, so I launched an initiative called Space Base for SDGs due to a strong desire to contribute to solving the socio-economic issues through by space business. So, firstly, we are focused on developing a successful case in Japan. However, given that the SDGs are the universal language that covers the common issues faced by humanity, so I'd like to expand its activities into other countries and other regions, and to cooperate with a variety of organizations and individuals, right? So as I mentioned, so there's a limit to what the space industry can do on its own. However, to address the numerous issues, collaboration would be extremely important. So if you have interest in my activity or interest in space itself, so please feel free to reach out to me anytime. So I look forward to collaborating with all of you. Yeah. That's my message.
Dear Masayasu, I want to convey our great thanks for sharing your vision, sharing as well, like some hope for us all, humanity, with the initiatives that you are supporting, and we look forward continuing the discussion and explore how we can, like build up more bridges of collaboration. So we can support sustainability here on the planet, thanks to the space, and as well, like look at the space as a common asset for humanity. I quote you on that. Thank you very much for joining us from Japan, from Tokyo, and looking forward the next exchanges. Thank you, Masayasu.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. See you next time. Thank you.
All the best. Thank you very much. Okay, so we are going to have the next speaker. That's perfect. We see Raul. Raul, are you with us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Raul. We call it, like the Swiss exactitude, in the sharpness of the mystery of time. So Raul, let me introduce you. We are very pleased to welcome a very committed and passionate person in the name of Raúl Torres, which is a counselor in the development division of the World Trade Organization. Raúl is really trying to support developing countries and as well, facilitating the implementation of the 2020 2030, agenda with the Sustainable Development Goals. As we know, the World Trade Organization's aim is to facilitate smooth exchanges, trade, and flows of capital in a way which is very much constructive between countries to facilitate circulation of wealth and as well circulation of opportunities. So, Raúl, the floor is yours. We are looking forward to your sharing of experience, and as well, in the format of this conference, which is dedicated to sharing recommendation and visions prior to the G20. So, Raúl, welcome in SIGEF G20 Special Edition.
Excellent, great. So thanks very much for having me and for inviting me to this to the SIGEF. So as Jonathan said, well, the WTO is very much committed and integral to the SDG agenda and to achieving development and economic growth and raising living standards for our members. So that of course aligns itself very much with the objectives of the agenda, and it's important to say as well that I mean, this is just not something that is there on paper. It's something that we have proof of trade actually working for development, and this it's mostly the experience that we learned from participation in the MDG process, which was the predecessor of the current SDGs. And I think that it's important always to mention that the SDGs is a continuity from something that we already had before. And during the MDG period, anyway, it was very important because the objective of reducing poverty was largely achieved because, I think many economists would find the consensus on this, that it was largely achieved through a greater participation of developing countries into world trade. This allowed for narrowing the gap between developed and developed countries in terms of income, and it just basically showed that trade-led growth can work for development. So, learning from that experience, trade was made an integral part of the Agenda 2030, and it's made an integral part that it's horizontal to the whole agenda. We have different targets and in different goals that reflect trade and the work of the WTO, but the overall role of trade is that of being an engine for inclusive growth and poverty reduction, and this is recognized in the agenda itself. So then I mentioned that of course trade was recognized in different targets and in different goals. The main one that where the trade-related targets are concentrated is under SDG 17 on partnerships for development. So that's very appropriate that we're talking about partnerships in this session. And there we have basically three targets that concern trade specifically. One is to strengthen the multilateral trading system. And then also another one is to increase the exports of developing countries, including the LDCs, and thirdly, to realize timely implementation of duty-free, quota-free market access for the LDCs. But that's not just the only target or goal where we have trade reflected. We have also trade reflected in other goals. For example, under SDG 2 on nutrition and food, we have a target concerning the reduction of export subsidies in agriculture and all trade distorting measures in the agriculture market. And here, of course, the WTO has already been working on it and producing some results. At the Nairobi Ministerial Conference, we had a ministerial decision adopted that will aim at the phase out of those export subsidies. We have other targets as well that reflect trade, for example, on access to medicines. We have as well a target under SDG 8 on decent work and economic growth, calling for the increase of aid for trade. Then we have under target 10A on reducing inequalities. We have a target on implementing the special differential treatment principle of the WTO. And lastly, but very importantly, we have under SDG 14, target 14.6, which calls for the prohibition of certain forms of tertiary subsidies that contribute to overcapacity and overfishing. And there it is stated that these negotiations should be done in the framework of the WTO, and this is precisely what we're doing, and hopefully what we're aiming to complete those negotiations by the end of the year, which is the deadline that has been set under the target 14.6, and well, hopefully we're working towards that. It doesn't seem like it's going to be easy, so hopefully, if not by the end of this year, which is almost over, we could do it by the next ministerial conference, which is scheduled to take place in the summer of 2021. So we have, as I said, all of those targets, and the WTO has been working very much in partnership with our colleagues at the UN. And more particularly, we have established a very good partnership with our colleagues in UNCTAD and ITC in what we have called the Geneva Trade Hub. So basically, the whole purpose of this Geneva Trade Hub is to raise the profile of trade in the discussions on attainment of the SDGs. And here. One thing that I mean, this partnership has already been producing various results. Among them, we have recently launched a website called the SDG Trade Monitor, and this website will allow members and the policymakers in members, as well as the general community, to track progress towards achievement of those trade-related targets that I mentioned, and that website you can find under sdgtrade.org. I would have liked to be able to show it to you by sharing my screen, but I don't think I have the possibility here.
You can try. Otherwise, we would.
Yeah, I can see it here. Okay, so I'll try share my screen. Okay. So how is that working?
You have to click on the sharing your screen, and then you select window. You click on the window.
Okay.
Let me.
Since I'm on the tablet, because we had a bit of a connection problem.
So it's sdgtrade.org. sdgtrade.org.
Yeah, if you can do that,
yeah,
Jonathan, it will be great.
Absolutely. So let me share my screen. So you can see. So do you see it, Raul?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes, I can see it. Great.
Oh.
So yeah, here you have it. This is the SDG Trade Monitor, and the focus here is to try to present the data on the indicators in a graphical way and in a way that is approachable to all users. So Jonathan, if you can scroll up again, and then you see that tab that says indicators. If you can hover over it.
Absolutely.
Here, great. So here you have all the indicators that we're presenting on this website. The ones that have a little star flag next to them are the official SDG indicators, and the ones that don't have that star are additional measures that we have added to broaden the understanding of how trade contributes to achieving this particular target. So if I can ask you then to go, for example, to the one on 1712.1, average tariffs faced by developing countries. So the last one there, if you can click on it, the last one on the list.
This one?
The last one. Average tariffs faced.
Average tariff. Okay, perfect.
Okay, so so there you have one of the visualizations that we have prepared for this indicator. And as you can see here, we have the tariffs that these groups of countries, least developed countries, developing countries, landlocked developing countries, and small island states, these are the tariffs that they face when exporting to developed countries. So yeah, so that's one of the visualizations that we have. And then if you scroll up, you can see that we have other types of visualization. If you click on line chart, you will see another way of presenting this information. So you see here, for example, you can clearly see that the tariffs faced have been decreasing through time. So that shows that this group of countries have been increasing their market access into the markets of the developed countries. You can also, if you look at the on the left side of the screen, you can actually focus on particular products, for example, or groups of products. So agriculture, clothing, industry. So that will allow you to get a good idea of where are the remaining tariff barriers that are being faced by the developing countries. And you can also present this same information in a more specific manner. If you go to countries and regions on the left side, yes. So you can select single countries if you want to compare, for example, the access that Argentina is having. Yeah, that's interesting. And then comparatively with those other groups of countries. So we can see here probably Argentina is not. Australia, that will not give you a very good answer, because this is tariffs faced when going into developed countries. So, for example, Bolivia or so that you will see how these countries have increased their market access. So in this case, for example, you can see that Argentina has less market access opportunities than, for example, Bolivia or the LDCs or landlocked countries in general. You can also do this by geographic regions, for example, focusing on Latin America, on Asia, Africa as well. So you have all those possibilities there. And this is what we have done. I mean, this is just to show you one indicator, but we have done similar things with other indicators, and in other indicators we have, for example, some issues that may lend themselves to other kinds of visualizations through a map chart or through a spider web chart. So yeah, I think it's a pretty nifty product, and I think it's very important now to have this kind of tool so that policymakers can implement measures and policies that are based on evidence, that are based on facts and data. So yeah, I think that that highlights, as I said, the importance of these partnerships, because this is a joint project by ITC, UNCTAD, and WTO, working together to deliver these type of products for the benefit of our members and for the community as a whole, because as you can see, anybody can access this data. So yeah, I think that's basically what I wanted to present as way of an introduction. I think it's, as I said, right now, particularly in this difficult times, we must also recognize that COVID-19 will make it all the more difficult for countries to achieve the SDG and their development targets. We are keeping in the WTO a close eye on how COVID has been impacting different areas of trade. For example, trade in medical products and supplies, as well as how has it impacted MISMEs, or how has it impacted women in vulnerable countries. So we have gathered this or done this wealth of research, which you could also find on the website of the WTO. So I think that I will stop here, to see if we have any questions or comments.
Raul, first of all, thank you very much for sharing this very great overview of the dynamics, the objectives. I think that the platform that you showed us, which is the combination of expertise of ITC, UNCTAD, and the WTO is very strong, because if we want to progress and improve, governments and all the respective agencies need to know the facts and need to know what's happening. So I think that's very very important. I would have maybe just two follow-up questions. The first one is more personal. So Raul, where is coming your passion and commitment for fighting to alleviate poverty through your commitment with WTO? You are a long time involved and committed executive, in that organizations. You have been involved before in Venezuela in different aspects for civic and public service. So, where is coming your passion for serving and making the world better in a very simple way to say it?
Great, yeah, definitely. I think that as you mentioned, I started my career in the area of trade and working with the government of Venezuela. At that time, I was focusing on mostly on how Venezuelan exporters were being assisted in their efforts to reach different markets and maintain that market access. So I was focusing mostly in the area of negotiations of free trade agreements, but as well in the area of assisting those exporters when they were being targeted by investigations on anti-dumping and countervailing measures. And through that experience, I came to know the WTO and also have contact with the organization. And I thought, of course, that that I wanted to take my expertise to that global level. Of course, having that expertise in Venezuela was very useful, and very useful for the exporters in Venezuela and to advancing the development of the country. But I thought that it would also be interesting to contribute to this on a more global level. And that's how I started in the WTO all the way back in 1996. I started in the rules division, again, doing work mostly in that area that I mentioned of what we call trade remedies, which is anti-dumping measures, countervailing measures, and safeguards. And I worked there for a long time. And then I thought that area was very interesting because it was what I like to call a canyon. It was very deep, but it was also rather narrow. So I thought that I wanted to work in an area that would allow me to broaden my expertise and to broaden my vision of how trade contributed to improving the welfare of countries. And so I thought that working in development would be that area. And I was also fortunate enough to also start working with the MDGs. I mean, I was the focal point for the MDGs when we were working on that development agenda. And as I said, since the SDGs are a continuation of that agenda, I am also currently the focal point for all SDG work in the WTO. So yeah, I think that definitely it's very rewarding work in terms of that you get to see and contribute to the improvement of members' conditions through the use of the multilateral trading system. So I think that that's a very important part of my work, and it's something that of course, if you believe in multilateral cooperation, is something that you very much find rewarding and yeah, with a passion to work in this field.
Absolutely, Raul. Well, thank you very much for sharing with us a little bit of yourself in that, and it's a long journey of contribution. So I think this is important. Our audience know where you are coming from in that regard. Maybe just to finish with this very deep and strong intervention that you are sharing with us. What might be in the context of this conference, which is prior to the G20, what might be, in few words, the recommendation or just, like the sharing of experience that you might, formulate or you would like to formulate to the governments and to the G20. So what will be those advice, Raul?
Yeah, I think that that advice not in 2018, the WTO published a booklet, a publication with a set of recommendations on how to precisely use trade to achieve the SDGs or to attain the SDGs. And one, so that publication concludes with 10 recommendations. And I'm not going to name all of them. I think they're all important. But in the interest of time, I just want to focus on two. One, at the multilateral level. So basically, to keep on strengthening the multilateral trading system. We have been, prior to COVID-19, we had a period where many members were adopting a great deal of trade restrictive measures. Also, we saw some very important shocks to the multilateral trading system, such as the paralyzation of the work of the appellate body. So I think that the members need to get back to the table and try to achieve solutions to those issues that we have at the moment. We saw a great deal of uncertainty being added to the trading system with this so-called trade war between the US and China, and I think that through the use of the multilateral trading system, the tools that we have available at the WTO, members should resolve these issues and continue to give predictability and stability to world trade. And this will help the economic actors to do what they have to do, which is basically to generate wealth, generate income, generate employment, and in that way, countries can benefit from the extra economic growth that the private sector will provides, as well as individuals can also benefit from the growth in employment and the gain in efficiencies in terms of prices and access to goods and services. And second, more on a country level, it's important to mainstream trade into development strategies. So ensure that when the country is setting out a vision for their development, that trade becomes an important part of that vision. I mean, we have seen, as I said, how trade can work to raise, to increase development. We have seen it very clearly in the context of those least developed countries that have graduated to developing country status. If you look at those LDCs that have graduated, like for example Samoa, Cape Verde, and other LDCs that are almost on the threshold of graduation. For example, Bangladesh. There's one thing that they have in common, and it's that they have used trade and mainstream trade into their development strategy. So making sure that all the actors throughout the economy, both in the public sector, in government, the different ministries or agencies in the country, as well as the private sector, have trade as one of their main tools to achieve, as I said, that economic growth that can lead to development.
Raul Torres, thank you very much for sharing those recommendations. Maybe just to conclude the intervention, if you had one sentence to share with our international audience to give maybe more energy and more hope going forward into this very challenging year, what could be those words?
Those words would be that, I think that we all need to continue to believe in multilateral cooperation as a way forward for the world. Basically, I think that it has proved its worth in the past, and we need to continue to strengthen it to ensure that we can tackle the problems of today. That is, immediately the issue of COVID-19. Obviously, the recovery is going to be very difficult to work, but we need to, as the UN's motto says, build back better. But also the other areas that we're already putting a big strain on this multilateral cooperation that we need to address. For example, the issue of climate change is something that it's very much a pressing concern that should be tackled at the global level through multilateral institutions. And also the adaptation to new technologies. I mean, I think that that's also an area that we need to work on at the global level.
Raul Torres, thank you very much from WTO. Thank you for this intervention, and the pleasure for us to continue the discussion and see how we can, through collaboration, partnership, support sustainability going forward and the SDGs. Thank you very much, Raul Torres, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Now we go to our next speakers. Thank you very much, Xavier, for joining us. So let me introduce, like Xavier Michon, who is Deputy Executive Secretary of the United Capital Development Fund. Xavier is strategically involved into the new ways we can unlock capital to support alleviation of poverty around the planet. So Xavier, thank you for joining us from United States. It's very early, and we look forward sharing and listening to your insights in the framework of this conference, which is the special edition of SIGEF, a special G20 edition.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you for having me and then to be with the distinguished panel. Yes, here it's 5:30 in the morning, so I will tell you I'm not going to talk in theoretical and aspirational terms, but I'm going to give you practical examples. So I understand that we're talking about partnership for SDGs, Jonathan, and you wanted to have something around that subject matter. And just to make sure that I don't go overboard, I have about 10 minutes, or how you want?
You can go for 10 minutes, and then we will have a small conversation.
Very good. I'm going to time myself just here. So let me share a real-life case here at the institutional level, and I'll contextualize it within the COVID to give you, let's say, an application of what partnerships within the SDG framework. And I would like to move to something concrete rather than give you something more theoretical and conceptual. First of all, let me introduce you in CDF. So we have a capital mandate. We work primarily in least developed countries. So as you know, that's where capital is a little bit shyer. and that's and that's where you need an extra push, and then that's where we have let's say a mandate that is justified to try to support by unlocking capital, and that I'm saying that because we basically test via investments the viability of those investments in terms of impact, and of course in terms of the sustainability and in terms of return and so on. So we during COVID, as we all, it has we have questioned and reviewed how we operate and in this new setting, and one of, let's say, the target groups that we have is the SMEs. As we always, we all know, I mean, for us, it's central to mandate. But if we're talking about the impact on the livelihoods, and since LDCs are primarily African, at least in 2/3, let me remind you that SMEs are about 1/3 of the GDP in the continent. They represent 70% of the workforce. They account about 45% of jobs. So it's the impact on the SMEs of COVID is huge, and of course for us it was super important to address that. So we have basically tried to develop mechanisms to inject capital in SMEs to keep them afloat, in particular in certain value chains such as, of course, health and of course anything related to food, agriculture, and so on, so that basically they could supply all the individuals that they can stay safe at home, and that's what we have been doing. So to move to the application and give you the concrete case in terms of a partnership, one of the elements we wanted to know is how SMEs are reacting in those times of uncertainty. This was at the beginning of the crisis, so there was still some hope that this would last. Nobody knew what like we know today that this would we're 7 months later, and still we're in the midst of this crisis with the second wave. So we launched basically a survey in the LDCs. So just to let you know, let me put it into context. We're all at home. And we launched a survey this summer, and basically what we wanted to do is take the pulse of the SMEs in terms of how they're coping, how they're adapting, what are their needs, and how we can help. These were the questions. Let me remind you that these are SMEs in least developed countries with all the problems it entails, and the first one is connectivity. To make the story short, we got about 2,400 responses from all the LDCs, which was a first, and we were surprised to have such a extensive response. But on the partnership, and this is where I think I would like to highlight that how we went about it is in these uncertain times, and then that whereby it's communication is difficult. We cannot meet in person. We thought that this would require additional muscle, additional support, and then we should, let's say, extend this survey to other partners. And basically, we went about it by just knocking at doors, and we contacted. And so what I want to highlight is the spontaneous character of the partnership of institutions that have joined this initiative. Just because they just believed in this exercise, that they felt that this had to be done, and it was done in a matter of weeks. And basically, we partnered with the International Chamber of Commerce. It was based on a phone conversation. Actually, it was, I think, we even contacted via LinkedIn. We partnered with Columbia University. We partnered with a nonprofit called the Global Alliance of SMEs. And we partner also with the umbrella institution that basically regroups the 42 employer associations in Africa called Business Africa. And we partner with an important conveyor of the private sector called Concordia, which has an annual summit that brings thousands of companies at a very high level. And basically, this is to highlight, in terms of partnership, we did not sign anything. We just basically agreed that we would state to the public that we were holding hands and working together, and basically bring our respective comparative advantages in this survey. Why all these partners? We knew that gathering, try to receive answers from LDCs was difficult. So we had to basically extend our respective networks. So our network, even though we're present in most of the LDCs, we wanted to reach to a wider, let's say, group of SMEs. And of course, the ICC has a presence in several countries. This nonprofit that we were talking about also have one. And of course, the Business Africa, has a coverage in the African continent. And Colombia was, in terms of the rigor for the analysis at the statistical level. And finally, Concordia was to put basically the findings in a platform where we could be discussed. This was done in 3 weeks. And actually, we were thinking, we're learning something with COVID. We learned many things. But we learned that, there's appetite, there is interest in terms of joining forces and finding complementarities in these moments that we need to react quickly. They are, let's say, target groups that are in need, and we need to find basically ways to collaborate in creative manners. And that has been basically one approach. And this evolves now because we saw there is, there is a response, and we thought, what can we do next, and how we can leverage a broader, let's say, base of partners along something that is more structural. And by this is, we thought, today SMEs want to be, those markets where we operate are not known. Those SMEs that today are hopefully striving, they hopefully investing and evolving and trying to develop business models that are sustainable over time, but also have an impact. They need to have the visibility of investors. And so one of the ideas, and basically this is a real type, a case that we're basically working on now, and actually we are also building another round of partnerships around it. And I see we have 8 minutes, so I'll take 1 more minute, is that we're developing a platform whereby basically the holders of capital, so investors, and basically entrepreneurs can meet. So you would tell me, those things exist to a certain extent, yes. To LDCs, there are some expressions, but I think what we want to bring to the table is to combine. So the platform is, of course, a web space, and there are many ideas around it to bring substance, to bring intelligence, to bring value. And let me highlight, it's not just to connect SMEs to capital, but we know that capital today doesn't know those markets. Capital needs to have more information about how to lend in those markets, how to approach those markets, where information is an issue, where I guess risk is another element. And I think there is an element of advocating, to educating them, giving them information to how, in terms of to explore and hopefully to invest in those markets. And of course, on the other side, it's entrepreneurs are looking for different forms of capital. So today we are talking with some of the members that we have involved in the SMEs are also joining forces in this initiative. But we have a rating agency, we have another private company that is doing using artificial intelligence for e-trading that is also joining. There's a very large audit firm that is also joining. We've talked yesterday to an outlet that has one of the main, let's say, media outlets in the Africa region that wants to join. And I think all this to say that today, with some creativities, with some trying to be a little bit daring, taking a little risk and try to put some issues and try to find the solution behind it, you will find like-minded institutions, and by being also a little bit, not shy in terms of knocking doors, in terms of connecting, in terms of proposing ideas, and trying to find, let's say, equations where there is a win-win for everyone. There is an opportunity, in my opinion, more than in the past, to establish those partnerships or consortium around which basically everybody contributes. And I'm not talking about finance. It's about, sweat capital. It's about knowledge. It's about creativity. It's about effort, and in which we can develop something that is joint, but also has greater impact. So again, my conclusion is, first of all, if there's anyone interested, feel free to call me. The more, the better. But there is today, I think, a greater appetite to find, let's say, initiative solutions that are a little bit outside of what we used to, and I think individuals, institutions are more prone to embark in these initiatives. And I don't know, maybe it's the COVID effect. Today, I can click on a button and talk to all of you, like I can click a button and talk to anyone around the world. And access is extremely easy. Everybody is now in tune with Zoom, and it's so easy to contact people. So I think there is an opportunity. And so what I would like to conclude with and then continue conversation, there is a momentum. Hopefully that's something that will last. But we see with positive eyes that, with good ideas, with some creativity, some effort, it's fairly, I wouldn't say easy, but you can bring people, you can bring institutions around a joint initiative. And we of course, we ride in this wave that we think is extremely positive in that sense. Over to you. Hope I haven't talked too long. I see I've talked 12 minutes, so
that's superb, and thank you for sharing a concrete, experience, and as well, the shift of common willingness, of people and institutions to collaborate and find new ways, especially, triggered by this COVID situation. Maybe just a concluding remark, Xavier, what will be in the context of this conference, maybe your advice or recommendation for the governments of the G20 and beyond to facilitate and support the step that you are, committed to encourage in your particular field. It's really about, providing new ways and existing ways of financing and unlocking capital for the force, the civilian force and entrepreneurship force, which, as you say, mostly are encompassed into the SMEs. So what would be those recommendations of yours for the G20?
Yeah, a big word, recommendation for the G20. So I'll be humble and modest. But one thing, I think with COVID, everyone here around this table, if I can say so, it's a virtual table, will agree that we have today leveraged technology in one way or the other. So and technology is not just to streamline our processes to make it more efficient and effective, but in terms of connecting, I think we are. I talk to all my colleagues and they tell me we're connecting much more with individuals and with institutions, and actually it's. In practical terms, we don't need to, go down the street and meet at a coffee place. We just click of a button and we talk to individuals, and from there, the sky's the limit. So I think what we're missing, and that's what we're trying to do with in this, let's say, a space between the investment world and the entrepreneurial world, is it's important to generate those platforms and to try to build those communities whereby basically those different actors can connect, can find ideas, and then hopefully develop joint initiative. So this is our intent. I think the G20 is, in practical terms, I think this needs to be further explored. I think there's much more than can be done. We are thinking about artificial intelligence as a driver to basically to do matchmaking, and I think what my advice would be, there's an unlimited potential with leveraging technology in terms of making those connections, and I think that needs to be further explored. So my recommendation is unlock certain resources, unlock certain investments, so that basically we can continue in that direction, so that we can basically tap into the potential of technology to make those connections. And I think I'm sure there are ideas that we're not thinking about, or only a few are thinking about, that we will consider in the near future. And hopefully this is just the beginning.
Xavier Michon from United Capital Development Fund. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, and looking forward continuing the discussion and exploring the ways we can all of us facilitate and foster new ways to make the world more sustainable. Thank you for joining us, Xavier, and looking forward to our next exchange.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone. So we close this panel session for the positive partnership of the SDGs, and we are going to start now with the disruptive technologies for a sustainable future. Thank you for joining this session with our great speakers that came from different parts of the world and sharing inspiring, thoughts, ideas, and recommendations. Thank you. Thank you, Raoul.
Thank you.
Thank you, Masayusa.